Hello there folks, my name's Steve and welcome to the Prepping and Survival channel. If you're someone who's considering emergency preparedness and emergency supplies and stocking up with emergency supplies just in case, but you live in an urban environment, you live in a small flat or apartment and you feel it's way too small and you would never possibly get enough supplies in to sustain you for any amount of time, well, keep watching because this video is about urban prepping and I'm going to show you how you can get 60 days supply in a small cupboard like this with no problem whatsoever. Obviously, I'm not at my home at the moment, so what I've done, I've come to my workshop and I've quickly put together a makeshift demonstration larder unit, typical in size and depth and height that you would find in a small apartment. Now, my larder is 2 foot wide by 2 foot deep and 6 foot 6 high. There's 3 shelves in it and a floor area at the bottom here for storage. So in this scenario, I'm working with a similar situation to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll assume that we've all been forced to bug in at home during the lockdown. So basically, I can hardly leave the house. And also, in addition to that restriction of movement, the power grid is down. This will mean I'm locked in, locked down, can't go out, plus there's no electricity. And I have to survive under these conditions for a full 60 days. Now, the UK government recommends that each household prepares for emergencies by storing water, enough water for your basic needs. They recommend in total 10 litres, which is 2 gallons of water per person per day for drinking, sanitation and hygiene. I personally think that's too high because you're not burning off any energy that would require drinking gallons of water and needing to cook tons of food like you would if you was out in the woods chopping wood and trying to survive against the elements. So that's a bit on the high side. Realistically, I would say 1 gallon per person per day is sufficient for drinking, hygiene and cooking needs. Now, when it comes to stored water, which obviously you can only store so much for so long, you want to try and last the first couple of weeks, and then after that think about how you can procure water from other means and purify it. So when it comes to stored water, you've got the 2, 5 and 15 litre bottles. I would always go with the 15 litre bottle, especially the square shape. These will stack very easily and they'll store very easily, and it's going to give you a couple of weeks leeway because you'll have that stored water. Just as a bit of a side note as to why I prefer the larger 15 litre bottles, is you can get these dispensers that simply screw onto the top of the bottle and give you a pump action delivery, making it much more easier than trying to lift up a big heavy bottle. So these are very good. But after that, you're going to need to think about purifying and making the water safe to drink, because you will need to capture the water through rain, for example, or through river or pond water. That won't be drinkable. Well, it will if you want to chance it, but generally it won't be safe. It's possibly contaminated, and you now need to think about how you're going to filter that water, which brings me on to the next bit of water filtration. So these are my main means of water filtration, apart from using the boiled water method and water purification tablets. Come in a pack of 10, and 1 tablet will do 1 litre of water. Will purify that so you can drink it safely. So obviously keep a load of these as well, but they store away quite easily. They're quite compact. I prefer to use the Lifesaver system. It's very good. I've used it for years. You may well prefer something else. This is the Lifesaver Liberty. It will collect water from any source and filter it, and you'll be able to fill up containers. The other method that I quite like is the Lifesaver Cube. you pour your contaminated water in this section here, and then using this pump method you pressurize the whole container, and then the water will come out of here as filtered, safe, drinkable water. I've never had any problems with it. It holds several litres of water, and you can decant your collected water into it and take it to where you need it to use. So it's very portable. Before I get onto the subject of food storage, I just want to touch on how you can preserve your water stores and make them last just a little bit longer. And you do that by using sanitation and personal hygiene products. Now, it goes without saying that you need toilet paper, so you always store plenty of that. But I would also add, store as many of these as you can. Wet wipes. These are ideal for wiping your hands, wiping your face, wiping anything really, and they're antibacterial, antimicrobial, and they're also perfect for not using much water, or an alternative to using water. Also, these antibacterial hand rubs, a couple of them, they're always handy. Most definitely an antibacterial soap, so you're going to need one of them. A couple of sprays that will spray down a worktop or surface, keeping that hygienic, and a small bottle of Dettol to clean things. Now, you could add to this, there's plenty more other products out there, but I suggest that as your basic. That will give you personal hygiene, personal cleanliness, and the area that you live in, you can always wipe it down, because the last thing you want is to get ill. And if you can prevent it by simple measures like this, then do so. And it also will preserve your water. Now, there's still plenty of room in here, so I would add any of your own personal medication. If you can get a prescription for 60 days, then it's ideal. Spare pair of glasses or contact lenses, some toothpaste, a spare toothbrush, all the normal hygiene products. Just get one extra of each, store it in here, and that's your entire backup. As a prepper, you've probably got quite a bit of kit stored away in your apartment already, but there are just one or two what I consider essentials that you're going to need, especially with the grid down scenario that we've got here. And one of them is a solar powered and wind up radio. I think that's quite necessary to find out information and know what's going on outside. So we'll store one of them in here. And next is a solar powered charging bank. Something as simple as this will do. I actually use this in my bug out kit or my get home bag. But that's a basic. That will give you a bit of power to charge up your phone if necessary, and to find out what's going on. There are other chargers, bigger ones, that will run your fridge, for example. Whether you want to invest in them and whether you've got the room to keep them in your apartment, obviously is down to your own situation. But the solar power bank and the solar and wind up radio, they are the minimum that you should have. I would also add to these two a couple of torches, various assortments of batteries, and also a couple of these just like table lanterns. So as you can see, we're starting to get a bit full up, but it's only the top shelf, and we've still got a little bit more room for any other essentials. So let's move on a bit now. Regarding the food that I've chosen to store, I always pick food that I naturally gravitate to, naturally eat and like. Wouldn't go out and choose and buy a load of MREs, for example. That's stupid. You might not like them, and you've got to have used them before to know that you've liked them. But generally, normal household food is what I go to. And some of the foods, for example, canned tuna, corned beef. You can always eat this sort of stuff cold, straight out of the tin, just for a snack. But when it comes to having a hot meal and cooking, you're going to need a means to heat the food and any water you need. Now, you may have a gas stove in your apartment. That's all very well, but the gas companies, if there's a power down and a grid down situation, they need electricity to pump the high pressure gas to the pressure reducing substations and then onto your home. Well, of course, that will dry up pretty quickly, so you're not going to have a gas cooker. So you've got to look at other methods of cooking your food. I use two systems for heating my hot water and cooking my food, mainly for redundancy. Obviously, if one system fails for some reason, I at least have a backup. And it's a jet boil system. I've had this set for many years and it's never let me down. I've taken it on wild camps and it's always worked really well. So this is my go-to first choice for heating hot water and cooking my food. And as you can see, it's got this coloured temperature gauge that moves up and indicates if the water's starting to boil, which saves you having to keep taking the lid on and off. And they also do a frying pan which fits the whole system, so you've got a complete cook set in one. And like I said before, this is my main go-to source for heating hot water and cooking my food. And this is my secondary form of heating water and cooking, a very simple, straightforward camping stove. These run off of butane cartridges. The whole setup is very inexpensive and it's an excellent method to use as your backup. As you can see, this is brand new. All I've done literally is tested it to make sure it works. It packs away quite nicely, doesn't take up much room, and I store half a dozen or so of these cartridges as well. Moving on to food now. Food is your most bulkiest items and will take up the majority of your cupboard space. There's a recommended calorie intake per day for a sedentary person. For a woman, it's 14 to 1600 calories a day, and for a man, it's 16 to 2000 calories per day. So I'll try to factor that amount in as we go along. And for that, I add 4 kilos of rice in separate 1 kilo bags. Next, I'll include 3 1 kilo bags of porridge oats. They can be any sort of oats that you like, but you can mix lots of stuff with these porridge oats. So I've got 3 bags of 1 kilo of pasta. Again, you could add many things to it and they make a really substantial meal. Now, in addition to these base foods, I have 1.5 kilos of self-raising flour, a tin of powdered milk, and a bag of raisins. And with them 3 items, I can make bread. I make a bannock, which is a survival bread, which incidentally is really delicious. And you can make tons with that amount. So they go in as a base food. And also, in addition, I have a pancake mix for the occasional treat. In addition to that treat food, I will include some other treats, something like biscuits, fruit bars, and in my case jerky. I quite like that. So you've got something you can always nibble on if you're a little bit peckish. And then I've got a packet of coffee. If you like hot drinks, hot chocolate or tea or whatever, make sure you include some of that as well. Next, you'll need to select the foods that you're going to mix with your pasta and your rice to form a meal. And I particularly like these tinned chili con carne, the chicken with rice, vegetable chili, the mild curries, chicken with white wine sauce, corned beef, tuna, beef meatballs, and I would suggest 6 to 10 cans. They'll give you enough variety to choose different meals each day. And don't forget all the sauces that go with these foods as well. A bolognese sauce, mushroom sauce, creamy lasagna sauce. All them sort of things will again add flavour to your food and stop it becoming boring. Chili sauce, soy sauce, teriyaki sauce. Now you'll find that fresh fruit is probably not going to be available, so you can always resort to tinned peach slices, orange slices, fruit cocktails. They're all just as good, so store plenty of cans of that. Peanut butter, very good source of protein. Keep yourself lots of jars of that. And as another treat food, jam, strawberry jam, raspberry jam. If you get some boxes of crackers, they are superb as a little snack. And as a personal well done for getting through another lockdown, grid down day, I've also added a few bottles of alcohol to my larder cupboard for a more relaxing end to the day. And that's more or less it for my urban survival cupboard. There's nothing special, nothing fancy, just basic substance food that you can mix and match, and it's readily available at any supermarket, and it's relatively inexpensive. You've got to bear in mind that you'll already have, or at least should have, quite a lot of the equipment and other survival gear stashed in your apartment. Things like a first aid kit, personal medication, pots, pans, knives. So evaluate what you've already got and adjust your emergency cupboard to suit your particular needs. And I think that just about does it for my survival larder and micro prepping for urban living. I hope you've got something out of it. I hope you've seen that you really can prepare for disasters even if you live in a small urban environment. So for now then folks, take care, stay safe, and remember, prepare today, survive tomorrow. See you all in the next video. Bye for now.